Welcome. This week, I'll be showing you how I painted this very cool samurai miniature. We'll be looking at dark skin tones, white clothing, and more. If you find any tips on the video useful, make sure to subscribe. I've been posting videos every 6 days since the beginning of the year, and I plan to continue till the end of it. Here's a look at some of the colors I'll be using today. After applying some base coats, I began to work on the skin. To my base color of burnt umber, I added some amaranth red. This mix was used to layer all over the muscles and other raised areas. Having added too much amaranth red for my liking, I applied an all-over wash of diluted burnt umber, in order to tune down everything a little back to the base color. Now, with the first highlight looking less striking, I moved on to the second one. This time, aiming to cover less surface and keeping the paint towards the top parts of the muscles whenever possible, in order to simulate light coming from above. A very small amount of sunny skin tone was added to the previous color, and just as I did before, continued working in an even smaller area, allowing my two previous steps to be visible. It is important to note that paint darkens a bit when it dries. So for the final highlight, I keep on using the same color mix, but build it within the previous highlighted area. Having pushed my highlights to a point where they stand out too much, I blended everything back together with the diluted past of burnt umber, just as I did before. One glaze, however, wasn't enough to tone down those highlights, so another one was applied. I then decided I wanted to push my darkest shadows a bit, and for this I used German Camo Black Brown. This is an almost black brownish color which I heavily diluted, but in contrast to the burnt umber glaze, I let this color pull on the recesses, since my aim was not to unify transitions, but to enhance shadows. To paint the bandages, I unload the excess paint from my brush before lightly brushing medium gray using the side of my brush. This way, I help myself to avoid getting paint in those tiny recesses between the bandage wrappings. After one coat, a second one was applied, adding an off-white color to the medium gray. I believe I use ivory for this, but any whitish tone will work the same. For the white clothing, I began working over the folds which were facing upwards, with a 50-50 mix of my base color and an off-white color. I used dark sea gray and deck tan for this, but any gray and white you have will work the same. This first pass saw me blocking out the upper facing folds very loosely. While I was precise, this was not a proper edge highlight, as you'll see me paint big folds here and there. Using pure deck tan, I did an actual edge highlight, but only on the thinner creases. My base coat ended up being too light for a shadow color, so I heavily diluted dark gray and helped it run in my deeper shadows to add much needed contrast to the white. For the purple clothing, I began by correcting any spillovers from the previous steps with my base color, which was a mix of 3 parts violet red and 1 part black. With the base shadow color applied, I began working on the upper facing folds with pure violet red. In order to build up the color, 2 to 3 coats would be necessary. Because of the intricate folds of this design, I began by working with the upper facing folds before looking to highlight less obvious parts. Just like with the bandages, I worked the edge highlights by unloading the excess paint from my brush and placing the brush sideways. I added some ice yellow to the mix for this final step. Since this color contains yellow, it will provide more luminosity than mixing pure white. The final thing I'll show you is the Afro. Over a black base coat, I loosely let my brush catch and erase details with German camo black-brown. It is important to note that I'm not dry brushing. Small amounts of cork brown are added to the German camo black-brown to start building highlights. The application method is the same, but as I add more and more cork brown to the mix, the less paint I have in my brush, so as to catch less and less details, and only applying paint on the upper curls which will be facing the sun. After painting up the finishing touches and basing the model, this is the result. I hope you learned something useful from the techniques on this video, and I have something special for next week, so stay tuned for that.